Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going way back to the story of Noah's Ark. I bet you think you know this one, but trust me, we're going to go way deeper than just the flood, okay?
Yeah, we're talking dates, scouting missions, maybe even some creatures you didn't expect to find on board.
It's all about seeing this ancient tale in a whole new light.
Okay.
So, to kick things off, the Ark touches down on Mount Ararat on, get this, the 17th day of the 7th month.
Right.
But then it takes until the first day of the 10th month for any mountaintops to even peek out of the water.
Almost 3 months.
Dude, can you imagine stuck inside that Ark with all your family? All those animals?
All the smells.
Oh, for sure, the smells. And no clue what's waiting for you outside. I mean, talk about cabin fever.
For real.
But here's the thing. Even after those mountaintops finally appear, Noah hangs tight for another 40 days before sending out that first raven.
40 days.
Like, what's up with that? Why?
I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy for us to say patience, right? But think about it from his perspective. It's not like waiting for a delayed flight. You know, this is about waiting to see if there's even a world left out there at all.
Yeah.
To me, it speaks to this incredible sense of, I don't know, cautious optimism maybe?
Yeah.
This measured approach to a situation that's completely unprecedented.
That makes sense. Okay, but then why a raven for that first scouting mission? I mean, come on. Ravens aren't exactly the most cheerful birds, right?
This is true. It is a bit of a curious choice. The text actually says the raven was going to and fro. And ravens are scavengers, aren't they?
Ah, so there's a dark side to this.
Yeah, it paints a pretty grim picture of what was out there. Probably lots of carcasses left behind by the flood.
Oh, wow.
It's a stark reminder of the devastation Noah's facing.
Okay, heavy stuff. But then we get the dove, right? Sent out not once, not twice, but 3 times, each a week apart.
Yeah.
First trip, nothing. Second trip, bam, the olive branch. And finally, she just doesn't come back.
It's like this mini drama unfolding, right?
It is.
I think it's such a clever way to build that tension, but also that sense of hope at the same time.
Yeah.
The dove really becomes this symbol of Noah longing for a sign of life, of a future beyond all that water.
Beyond the wasteland.
Exactly.
And then that olive branch. It's more than just a twig, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It represents the world starting to heal.
Yeah.
Nature coming back to life.
It's amazing how these specific details can really elevate the story. It's not just some generic flood account, you know? It's like this meticulously crafted narrative.
With layers.
Layers of meaning, exactly. And speaking of details, you ever notice how God tells Noah to bring every living thing on board? Not just animals. Every living thing.
Oh, that's a good point. It's easy to miss that. We tend to picture this floating zoo, right?
Yeah.
But what about the insects, the bacteria, fungi even? Maybe plants too.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Completely changes the scope of the story, doesn't it?
It does. It's not just about saving cute furry creatures. It's about preserving the entire web of life in all its craziness.
In all its diversity.
Yeah.
And it's not just preservation either. It's about rebuilding.
Right.
God tells Noah to breed abundantly. Make sure life flourishes again.
It's more than survival.
Way more.
It's a call to action.
Yes. A directive to not just exist, but to thrive.
I love that. And here's another thing that blows my mind. So the earth is finally dry, right? And I mean really dry. Not just when the rain stops, but months later.
Months and months.
And what does Noah do? Does he throw open the Ark doors and have a giant party?
Nope.
First thing he does is build an altar and offer burnt offerings.
Such a powerful image.
It is. It's like this profound statement of gratitude, recognizing that higher power that saw him through the whole ordeal.
You know, that detail always gets to me. Imagine the relief, the joy of finally stepping onto solid ground after all that time.
Yeah.
But before anything else, Noah takes the time to give thanks.
Wow.
Speaks volumes about his character.
It really does.
His priorities.
Totally.
And I think it sets the stage for what comes next, right?
Absolutely.
The big one.
God makes this promise to never again curse the ground or destroy all living creatures.
It's such a pivotal moment.
It is.
It marks this huge transition from judgment to grace.
Yeah.
From destruction to restoration.
And it's not just a promise to Noah and his fam, it's to all of humanity.
Every living thing on earth.
Pretty incredible considering what they all just went through.
It is, isn't it? And that brings us to a really interesting question.
Okay, hit me.
If God is so committed to this fresh start, to this new beginning, why include that line about the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth?
Yeah, that's a head scratcher. It's like this little downer sneaking in on an otherwise hopeful scene.
It is.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's an acknowledgement of reality, right? Even with this fresh start, even with these divine promises, human nature is still, well, human nature.
We're complicated.
We have free will,
Mhm.
and that means we have the capacity for both amazing good and, well, terrible evil.
So the covenant isn't some naive guarantee of a perfect world. It's more like, I don't know, a framework for navigating how messy we can be.
Yeah. Even with divine intervention, we've still got to deal with our own flaws, make choices that shape the world around us.
Wow, that adds a whole other layer of depth to this story, doesn't it?
It does. It's not just some feel-good tale of survival.
Yeah.
It's this deep reflection on that ongoing struggle between good and evil.
Inside us.
Around us.
And that tension, that complexity, that's what makes this story so powerful, right?
It is. It's what keeps us coming back to it.
So we've got the flood, the ark, even those scavenging ravens. But there's so much more to unpack here.
Oh, for sure.
We haven't even touched on the rainbow yet.
That iconic symbol of hope and reconciliation.
Right. Plus, we need to dive deeper into the covenant itself.
Absolutely.
What does it really mean for humanity? What does it tell us about our relationship with the divine?
Big questions.
Let's take a breath and tackle those when we come back. You won't want to miss it.
Definitely not. Welcome back. Before we get to that rainbow, I think we got to spend a little more time with this covenant thing. It's not just some casual, hey, let's shake on it kind of deal. This is a formal declaration, like a binding promise with some serious weight behind it.
It's like the ultimate contract, signed and sealed by, well, God. And what's crazy is it comes right after all that destruction, right? It's like saying, okay, enough with the tough love, time for a fresh start.
Exactly. And the scope of it, it's mind-blowing. It's not just about Noah and his family. This thing covers every living creature on Earth.
From the tiniest little bug to the biggest whale.
Totally.
I wonder what the ancient folks hearing the story for the first time made of it all. Was it like a source of comfort? Or more like a warning?
I bet it was a little bit of both. Think about it. They've just gone through this insane event that wiped out their whole world.
Right.
And then they're told this God, who just unleashed all that destruction, is now promising to never do it again. Talk about mixed emotions.
Trying to reconcile those two ideas. A God of wrath and mercy. A God who can destroy the world but also offer peace. Man, that's a lot to process.
It is. And I think it gets at the heart of that whole human relationship with the divine, We want that comfort, that reassurance. But we also know there are these powerful forces out there totally beyond our control.
Which kind of brings me to something I've always wondered. Why a rainbow? Of all the symbols God could have picked, why something that seems so, I don't know, temporary and delicate?
Right. Well, on one level, a rainbow is just science, right? It's light refracting through water droplets.
Okay, but there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Rainbows have carried this deep symbolic meaning in cultures all around the world for, forever.
So they come with baggage.
Tons of baggage. In many cultures, rainbows are tied to hope, transformation, this bridge between the earthly and the divine. They're a sign of good luck, a promise of something better coming.
So it makes sense that God would choose a rainbow to represent this covenant. It's a visual reminder of a promise that goes way beyond just the physical world. But you said baggage, right? Were rainbows always seen as this positive thing?
That's a great question. It's important to remember that symbols can mean different things to different people. And even within the same culture, interpretations change over time. Some ancient cultures actually feared rainbows. They saw them as bad omens or even supernatural serpents.
So that rainbow could be comforting or terrifying depending on who you were.
Exactly. It shows how important it is to understand the cultural context surrounding these stories, right? There isn't always just one single meaning that everyone agrees on.
That's a good point. It's easy to get stuck in our own modern way of thinking and forget that these stories have been passed down through generations, each adding their own layer of interpretation.
I know. And that's what makes studying ancient texts so cool. We get a glimpse into the minds of people who lived in such a different world. We see their beliefs, values, even their fears.
We always talk about the flood as the symbol of destruction, but maybe the rainbow is a symbol of something equally profound: resilience.
Wow, I like that. Think about it. Rainbows only show up after a storm, right? They remind us that even after the darkest times, beauty and hope are still possible.
And that even after going through something traumatic, the world can heal, regenerate, come out even stronger on the other side.
Exactly. And just like the world, the human spirit is resilient too. We can get through tough times, learn from our mistakes, and rebuild our lives.
That's powerful. I think we've all been through our own personal storms.
Totally. And maybe that's why the story of Noah's Ark keeps resonating with people no matter what their culture or background is.
Because deep down, it's about the human experience, right? Facing hardship, overcoming challenges, finding that flicker of hope even when things feel bleak.
You got it. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles. We're part of this bigger story, a grand narrative of resilience and renewal that spans generations.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The flood, the ark, even those creepy ravens. But I keep coming back to that line in the covenant, where God says the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. It just seems kind of out of place after this huge promise of peace.
It's a weird mix, isn't it? You have this massive gesture of renewal,
Yeah.
like a total reset for humanity.
Yeah.
And then boom, a reminder that we're still going to mess things up.
It's like God saying, hey, I'm giving you another shot. But let's be real here. You humans have a knack for making bad choices.
Almost like a little cosmic joke, right?
Yeah.
A bit of irony tucked into this
Yeah.
epic story.
Yeah.
But I think it's there for a reason. It keeps things grounded.
In reality.
Exactly. Acknowledging that we're complicated creatures,
Yeah.
capable of both incredible good and, well, some pretty awful stuff.
So the covenant isn't pretending we're all going to suddenly become saints.
Yep.
It's more like, what, like a set of guidelines?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-uh.
Like recognizing that we're going to need some help along the way.
We're going to need all the help we can get.
Probably. But it also means we still have choices to make. We're not puppets,
Right, we get to shape the world around us.
for better or worse.
Which brings us back to that rainbow. It's not just a pretty picture, is it?
Not at all. It's a symbol packed with meaning.
What do you think it meant to those people who first heard this story?
Well, put yourself in their shoes for a minute. You've just lived through this world-changing event, a flood that wiped out everything you knew. Then you see this incredible arc of color in the sky, something you might not even fully understand.
Well, this has been amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe even terrifying.
And then you're told that this rainbow is a sign, a promise from God, that it'll never happen again.
It's got to be a powerful moment, right?
Life-changing even.
Totally. It turns something natural, something scientific, into something sacred. A visible reminder of this invisible power.
Linking that power to hope, to peace.
To a future without destruction.
It's like saying that even out of chaos, beauty can emerge. That even after the worst storms, there's still possibility.
Possibility for light, for renewal.
A message that speaks to everyone, no matter where they come from or when they lived.
Exactly. We all go through storms in our lives. Sometimes literal ones, sometimes more like, metaphorical ones.
Right.
And we all crave that feeling of hope, that belief that something better is waiting on the other side.
And maybe that's the heart of the Noah's Ark story. It's not just some historical account of a flood.
It's deeper than that.
It's about what it means to be human.
Our capacity for both destruction
Mm?
and, for making things right again.
Redemption. And it reminds us that even when things feel impossible,
Even when we mess up,
there's always the chance for a new beginning.
there's always hope.
I love that. So next time you see a rainbow, maybe take a moment to think about Noah, about that ancient promise.
That covenant.
Maybe you'll find a little bit of that hope and resilience reflected back at you.
What a beautiful thought.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Noah's Ark. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep seeking out those rainbows